Yeah.
Just.
And I don't think the province is going to be called yours. It's asking for you. Okay, so. So you the chair. Yes, so I see. So it's, you know, I've done, she does, but. Yeah, so she's scary, so just. I feel like, put it back up right as right. And then come back. Yeah, it's fine. Would have seen us be long and read kind of outside of it. Yeah. First, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Everyone, we'll call this meeting to order. Welcome, welcome. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging the presence and acknowledge with gratitude that we live and work on the traditional unceded territory of Squamish. People have been stewards of these lands and waters surrounding Nicolalewan, Bowen Island. Welcome to the Bowen Island Municipality of December 9th, 2024, and thank you for joining. I'm Andrew Leonard, the Mayor of Bowen Island Municipality and the chair of this meeting. I'd like to start, as I usually do, by introducing the other elected members of council here today. Starting on my far right, we have Councillor and Islands Trustee Sue Ellen Fast. To her left is Councillor and Islands Trustee Judy Getty. To my far left is Councillor John Saunders. To his right is Councillor Tim Wake. To his right is Councillor Alison Morse. Absent today and possibly joining us online will be Councillor Alex Jurgensen. We are also joined by several members of our professional staff team here tonight, including our Chief Administrative Officer, Kieran Dillon, our Corporate Officer, Sophie Insignia, as well as other members of our professional staff who may be presenting reports here this afternoon. This meeting is being recorded, and when members of the public speak during the question and answer and public comment portions of the meeting, your presence and voice will be included in the permanent recording, which is available at bowenislandmunicipality.ca, as well as live streamed and stored in perpetuity on our YouTube channel at Bowen Island Municipality. This council meeting is a forum for the conducting of the business of local government. We all love our home. We are all passionate about what happens here, and I would encourage everyone to maintain a constructive and respectful tone during the meeting and to direct comments for council during the public comment or question and answer portion of the meeting to myself. For those following along in the room or online, the agenda and full council package for this afternoon's meeting is available at bowenislandmunicipality.ca, including all of the reports. And before I look for adoption of the agenda, it might be worthwhile just to note that the municipality is celebrating a rather significant milestone this month. December 4th, 1999, 25 years ago today, Bowen Island Municipality was incorporated. And, you know, I think it's probably maybe worth hopping into a time machine and thinking back to that time in 1999, as we were on the eve of a new millennium. You might remember that the Y2K bug was on everybody's lips and wondering how that was going to turn out. Prince's song 1999 was on repeat nonstop that month. And on our beloved little island, something truly remarkable was happening. Our community was taking its first steps as Bowen Island Municipality. And so the incorporation referendum was held on June 19th, 1999. We had our letters patent signed in September of that year, and the first election was held November 20th, 1999. So just over 25 years ago. Mayor Lisa Barrett was elected along with councillors Ross Carter, Peter Frinton, Alan Lee, Alison Morse, Bob Turner, and Richard Underhill were elected for a term of 3 years. And many of those names are still resonant in our community today. The inaugural council meeting was held on December 4th, 1999 at the Union Steamship Store, which is now another beloved location in our community of the public library, where we, instead of curling up and listening to council meetings, we curl up and read books and gather as a community. Another fun fact, Judy Getty, who was then a provincial court judge, swore in the new council, and coming full circle, she's now serving on this current council. The municipal Minister of Municipal Affairs, Jim Doyle, presented the letters patent and as well as a ceremonial gavel, which I meant to look up today, but I don't have it. It's still on the wall over there. And council's very first order of business was to appoint Councillor Alison Morse to the chair of the Finance Committee, where I believe she has remained till this day. And also, well worth noting that Councillor Alison Morse has been elected in every subsequent election that the municipality has had, and as a result, has crossed her 25 years of service as a council member to Bowen Island, which is a pretty incredible and dedicated and committed act of service to the community. Council then made appointments to the Islands Trust and the Greater Vancouver Regional District, which is now the Metro Vancouver Regional District, the manager and approving officer, and banker and signing officers. And then at the end of its meeting, it gave, or towards the end of its meeting, it gave readings to bylaws number 1, 2, and 3, which for council procedure, a provisional budget, and to establish officer positions. So this afternoon, I think it's worth taking a moment to consider the development of the municipality as it's moved through its infancy and teenage years, and now at 25 years old could, I don't know, rent a car without raising any eyebrows, and how far we've come and where we're going. There's been a tremendous amount of work done in the short time that, or the shorter time that I've lived on this island, and the 25 years that's occurred, and I very much look forward to the 25 years that are to come. So thank you to all of the previous council members, staff, committee members, volunteers, everything that it's taken to keep the wheels of the municipality running. And here's to another 25 years. Just so everyone knows, we will be having a cake at the end of this council meeting. So if you're around, you're more than welcome to come and participate in the cake cutting ceremony and have a piece of cake with us. Okay, and with that, we will move into the more formal part of our meeting, and I will look for a motion to, or first I will look to the corporate officer to introduce any late items here this afternoon.
Yes, there are 3 late items. One is a letter from Tourism Bowen Island regarding the item 8.1, that's the MRDT. There was a revised recommendation in item 8.2, and you'll see that marked up on your paper agenda. And an additional item 12.9, which is the letter from Tourism Bowen Island regarding the residence survey that closes on December 15th.
That I will look to council for a motion to approve the agenda and on-table items for a December 9th meeting. Moved by Councillor Getty, seconded by Councillor Saunders. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye, that carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is public comments. I'll look to our corporate officer. How many public comments do we have here today?
We have 3 public comments. Starting with one on Zoom, Kirsten Enmark.
Okay, so all of our commenters will have the full 3 minutes to make their comments. You will hear a beep at 2 minutes and 45 seconds from our corporate officer. That's not a cutoff time. That's just like a, you got 15 seconds left. So, you know, make your last and strongest and conclusive point to council. And with that, we will look to Ms. Enmark, who is joining us on Zoom today. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mayor Leonard, and thank you, members of council. I will be brief. No ringing bell will be necessary. My name, of course, Kirsten Enmark. I'm the chair of the Community Economic Development Committee, otherwise known as the CEDC. And I'm really speaking today in regards to agenda item 8.1, the proposal for staff to examine the implementation of a municipal regional district tax of 3%, where it's proposed that 50% of the funds would be directed to the management of tourism. Please know the Community Economic Development Committee has a number of working groups. One of our working groups is the Policy Subcommittee, where they recently examined revenue options to better support tourism. After completing a fair bit of research and analysis, the Policy Working Group concluded that a plan to incorporate an MRDT tax would significantly improve the island's ability to make long-term sustainable plans around tourism. The CEDC agrees a sustainable source of revenue dedicated to community tourism management that oversees all aspects of tourism, from environmental impacts to visitor management, is desperately needed. Currently, tourism management is underfunded, and we need to develop a means of responding to the ever-growing demands of tourism on the island. Further, the CEDC also recommends that public-private partnerships be further examined to fund tourist operations and services. For example, water taxis and taxis on island could be of great benefit. Consistent with the staff report, the CEDC supports further community and stakeholder engagement and consultations. The CEDC committee is available and willing to support the efforts of municipal staff, including doing additional research and community engagement. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Inamark.
Next, we have Bob Schultz.
Mr. Schultz, do you want to join us up here at the front?
Is now a good time, or should I wait till the end?
This is, yeah, this
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Should. Hello, everybody. My name is Bob Schultz. I'm a longtime resident of Bowen Island, live in Blue Water, and wanted to comment on the new beach names. I grew up in Blue Water Beach, Blue Water Beach, we used to call it. Probably when I was 3 days old. I've been going there my whole life, and I just wanted to thank the council and naming committees for taking the issue of names very seriously and considering the context and appropriateness of names. They're especially for places like our beaches, which, you know, they're some of our most sacred places and important shared spaces on the island that mean a lot to people. And I just wanted to say that I'm fully in support of whatever the new names are, and wanted to just thank everybody for taking the issues so seriously, working so hard on it. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today, Mr. Schultz.
Next, we have Jody Lawrence.
Ms. Lawrence, feel free to join us.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council and staff. I'm here because on behalf of Tourism Bowen Island, I sent a late letter. It was done yesterday and this morning. I didn't think it was going to make it on, so I thought I better come and just read the letter because I didn't hear it get on your agenda, but it is as a late item. So I'm here speaking about the MRDT implementation project, and this is a letter on behalf of Tourism Bowen Island. We are in support of Daniel Martin's recommendation, but we just wanted to make a couple of additional points. So, dear Mayor and Council, the purpose of this letter is to comment on the Municipal Regional District Tax Implementation Project. The MRDT is an effective visitor-generated, performance-based, purpose-driven, and equitable tax collection system established in 1987 to fund community tourism programs and to support community socio-economic resiliency. The MRDT is important because it is the most significant revenue collected and designated for tourism management, programs, initiatives, and services. The MRDT provides indispensable core funding for tourism organizations and communities across the province. Tourism Bowen Island Association supports the implementation of a 3% MRDT. We believe the MRDT will help address TBI's chronic underfunding and enable Bowen to have a more secure and stable organization dedicated to responding to the ever-growing tourism demands impacting the island. We encourage the municipality to establish a consultation process along with the stakeholders listed in the staff report that includes non-accommodation tourism businesses, Community Economic Development Committee, the key organizations such as the Arts on Bowen and other groups that are part of Island's tourism ecosystem. We also encourage the municipality to consider allocating a portion of new affordable housing specifically for the tourism and hospitality employees. TBI welcomes the opportunity to work with them on this project, although our level of effort will be affected by our limited resources. We look forward to sitting down with you to discuss this initiative further. And that's on behalf of the Board of Directors. So I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't missed. This late item. Thank you.
We're here today.
That is it for public comments.
Moving on to our consent agenda, I will look to eager councillors who wish to pull items from the consent agenda.
I just wanted to say, Councillor Jurgensen has joined us.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I did notice that.
Okay.
Welcome, Councillor Jurgensen. Councillor Morris.
I would just like to pull 12.9, which is the letter to do with the resident survey on tourism.
Other councillors wishing to pull items from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will look for a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Getty. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that carries unanimously. 12.9, just scrolling down here in my agenda, which is letter from Tourism Bowen Island regarding resident survey, closes December 15th. Over to you for this position, Councillor
I
Morris.
just wanted to draw this to people's attention and hopefully anybody that's watching. The deadline is December 15th, and it's very easy to locate it by just going the survey to going to the Tourism Bowen Island website, and in the top right corner, there's a residence, and you click on that and the survey comes up. I think given the MRDT and everything else, it's valuable survey to have people complete. And I just wanted to draw attention to that. And is there any news items or articles going out from the municipality in the next few days where it could be included in there and advertised as well that way?
Well, look, I think staff is taking notes on that, so
The letter tourism the resident survey be received.
moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Fast. All in favor, raise your hand. Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that carried unanimously. Moving on to bylaw 7.1, Snow Cove Design Guidelines Update, Land Use Amendment Bylaw number 634. We have Sophia Reader here with us today.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Give me one moment. Share my screen. So better click on consent. Hello, everyone. I am here to present council with the results of our Snow Cove Design Guidelines, community engagement activities, as well as the committee referral, and to present council with our land use bylaw amendments for first reading that will update the process and requirements to the development permit for the village revitalization TP area. Just a little review here shown in the pink is the development permit area for the village revitalization, Snow Cove. See for those who need a little bit of assistance, it's all the way from the ferry along Bowen Island Trunk Road to Miller and Dorman Road, the area that we're reviewing. So back in July, we conducted engagement. We brought this to council to then conduct engagement in the fall. We hosted some public open houses and received some feedback from the community. Really, the goal of this community engagement was to look at the document and review the process. So how clear is it to determine what would or would not require a development permit? How clear is it to follow what is mandatory and what is not? And how the process for a DP would occur. That was the topic area of the engagement rather than looking at the design guidelines as a whole. Previously, in 2020, feedback was received from the community about the content of the DP and the goals to reaffirm that arts and crafts design style, and that wasn't really re-reviewed at this point. And we received a lot of really positive feedback. People said that they found the process clear, it was easy to follow, and it was really good to figure out what would trigger or would not trigger the need for a development permit, which was not incorporated in the DPA before. One of the pieces was to refer to the Heritage Commission. They reviewed on July 16th, and they had two recommendations that resulted in this meeting. The first were formatting a few bits and pieces of criteria that were implemented into the document. And the second is being recommended by staff to refer to the OCP steering committee, which is to review the borders of that development permit area to see if there are other properties that may need to be or wish to be included. So that brings us to the actual amendment bylaw, which the core piece would be replacing the current Schedule E, which is the design guidelines from the 1980s with the updated version. And then we've gone in and looked at to ensure that there's consistency and clarity with the other development permit areas. Currently, Village Revitalization DPA does not include specific guidelines or exemptions, and that has now been rectified. So if you can see on the screen, this is what would require a development permit now. Construction of any new buildings or structures, major additions, renovations, or alterations to existing buildings and structures, and any major changes to the exterior appearance of a property that would be visible from a public area. There we go. I won't go through every exemption, but these are really kind of the standard, similar ones to what is exempt from other DPAs, as well as going into what may not be required for a design form and character DPA, things like interior alterations, renovations, maintenance, etc. So that leads us to a recommendation that council receive the results of the SNUG Design Guidelines consultation activities and the Heritage Commission referral, that the bylaw be read a first time, and that bylaw number 674 be referred to the Islands Trust for review. Thank you. That's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look to council for any questions of the planner. Seeing none, can I have someone move the recommendation, please? Councillor Fast.
Thank you. As somebody who's been on the advisory design panel as a council liaison for, this is now my second term, I'm really happy to move the motion that council receive the results of the Snug Cove Design Guidelines, Community Engagement Activities and Committee Referral, that bylaw number 674, 2024, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Land Use Bylaw number 57, 2002, Amendment Bylaw number 674, 2024, be read a first time. And that bylaw number 674, 2024, and the attached Islands Trust Policies Checklist be referred to the Islands Trust.
Moved by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Wake. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms.
Everyone?
7.2, 2095 Cape Drive rezoning bylaws number 66 and 67, 2024. We have our island community planner, Drew Backinger, is here today.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report is to return to council with the results of the referrals to the Islands Trust Executive Council and to present the amending bylaws for second reading. So quick recap, the bylaws would amend both zoning and OCP designation at 2095 Cape Drive to permit the Island Discovery Learning Community to continue operations indefinitely. First reading was given to bylaws number 666 and 667 at the regular council meeting of September 23rd. The bylaws were then referred to the Islands Trust as required. The Executive Council of the Islands Trust met on October 30th to discuss the referred bylaws. There was some initial discussion between Islands Trust and Bowen Island staff regarding potential limitations to floor area for the school, the suitability of the location considering the distance from the transit network, whether sufficient quality and quantity of groundwater exists on site to support the use, and verification of a non-domestic groundwater license having been issued by Vancouver Coastal Health. So it's noted that last license has not been acquired, but the applicant is working with Vancouver Coastal Health as we speak on achieving compliance, and staff would ensure that license is in place before we bring the bylaw for third reading. And then ultimately the executive committee agreed that proposed bylaws were not contrary to or at variance with the Islands Trust policy statement, and they did not recommend additional conditions. Regarding public notification, it's noted that even after the passing of Bill 44 in BC, which ended most public hearings, public hearing is required here due to the inclusion of no CP amendment. So staff recommend that hearing is held no earlier than mid-January, just so that staff are available in the office when notices are out as opposed to being away on the holidays. And also due to the size of the properties in the area, staff recommended an expansion of the notification radius from 100 meters to 300 meters to better reach neighbors. So showing up there visually is the properties that would be reached by a 300 meter radius. So keep in mind that the 100 meter radius would pretty much just fall on directly adjacent properties because they're of such a size. 100 meters doesn't really typically won't even span the property. So with the proposed bylaws upholding access to education on Bowen Island and with no issues raised by committees or the Islands Trust, staff recommend the council give second reading to bylaws 666 and 667 and direct staff to prepare for a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Bracken. To council for any questions, Councillor Getty, and I would request council to put questions for the planner through me, please. Through the chair.
Okay. Well, with respect to the non-domestic groundwater license, is this got anything to do with the provincial hold on water licenses?
Councillor Getty, not that I'm aware of.
The proponent behind the shaking his head. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Getty, any further questions? Councillor Wake.
I'm prepared to make the motion.
Absolutely.
The bylaw number 666, 2024, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Land Use Bylaw number 57, 2002, amendment bylaw number 66 to 2024, be read the second time. The bylaw number 667, 2024, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Official Community Plan bylaw number 282, 2010, amendment bylaw number 667, 2024, be read the second time. And the council directs staff to schedule a public hearing with an expanded notification radius of 300 meters.
Moved by Councillor Wake, seconded by Councillor Fast. Any further discussion or debate on the resolution? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bracken. 7.3 parking standards for affordable housing, multifamily developments, land use amendment bylaw number 670. We have our manager of planning and development, Daniel Martin.
Can I go back to the last agenda item? I had a question.
As it's your 25th anniversary. Al.
Shall I go get the proponent again?
Oh, has Drew disappeared?
Yes, and so has the.
It had to do with the notification. If you look at the map, there's two lots in the middle of two lots that aren't included, and the same up at the entrance of Whitefield. So I was just wondering if we could include those 4 lots in the notice.
I'll look to Mr. Martin as the head honcho of planning.
Thank you. Through the chair, I can pass that note on.
Yeah, it just made no sense.
Mr. Beckett will include those two.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But you're okay, Mr. Beckett.
No way.
Over to you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you. So I'm here today to present on bylaw number 670, which is a parking standards for affordable housing. So as a reminder for council, this project came out of our approved action plan for the Housing Accelerator Fund, which called to review existing parking standards in the land use bylaw with a view to reducing parking requirements for affordable housing multifamily developments. So bylaw 670 that received first reading from council would include a new definition for affordable housing, and it would reduce the parking requirement for affordable housing units to be 0.5 per development unit. Where we are in the process, this bylaw has received first reading. It has been reported to the Islands Trust and various committees and is back before you for consideration of second and third reading before it will come back to council again for bylaw adoption. Some of the referral responses, the Islands Trust Executive Committee reviewed the bylaw and indicated that the bylaw is not contrary to or at variance with the Islands Trust policy statement. It was referred to 4 committees, all of which supported the bylaw with some comments that are in your report. So the APC supported, noting especially within Snug Cove and in proximity to transit. The Environment Climate Action Committee supported it, highlighted the need for alternative transportation options. The Housing Advisory Committee supported it with no additional comments, and the Transportation Advisory Committee supported it and emphasized the need to emphasize the active transportation plan to support modal shift away from single vehicle use. So with that all in mind, the staff recommendation is to give the bylaw a second and third reading.
Thanks, Martin. I will look to council for any questions to the planner. Councillor Fast.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question about the Transportation Advisory Committee. Their last bullet point of their suggestion in the agenda here, it says offset parking should be looked at. Does that mean off-site, or what is offset parking? I'm looking at page 3 of 5 of their report, the last bullet.
Through the chair, I believe that's correct. They're looking for off-site parking, so that the need for additional like centralized parking, especially in Snug Cove.
Thank you. I just want to make sure it was a term I wasn't.
Councillor Getty.
I think it was actually more complex than that because we weren't sure what off-site space there might be, and that's a big problem. So it was somehow rather finding more parking somewhere, somehow.
So you did mean offset, like finding parking that will offset the loss of parking, yeah.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll look for a mover of resolution, please. Councillor Wake.
Yeah, I move that bylaw number 670, 2024, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Land Use Bylaw number 57, 2002, amendment bylaw number 670, 2024, be read a second time, and the bylaw number 670, 2024, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Land Use Bylaw number 57, 2002, amendment bylaw number 670, 2024, be read a third time.
Seconded by Councillor Morse. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that carries unanimously. And 8.1 under staff reports, municipal regional district tax MRDT implementation project. Still with us here is Mr. Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, here today with a report on implementing the municipal and regional district tax. So by way of refresher, this is a tax that was introduced in 1987 at the time to fund tourism marketing projects, and then has been expanded to fund as well affordable housing initiatives, and it's through a tax on short-term accommodation. The revenue from the tax is supposed to support tourism growth, jobs, and housing, and it must supplement and not replace existing tourism funding sources. This item was in Council's strategic plan to implement the municipal regional district tax. So we're coming with this report to outline how we intend to meet that plan item. The report goes over some of the application requirements for this tax, which are quite lengthy and quite involved process, and sort of take some time to plan through to get some of the steps we need to complete at the previous application steps. And so the report sort of highlights that the initial phase is working on a 5-year strategic business plan and the affordable housing plan. So essentially you need a plan to show what you would do with the tax to be implemented, and kind of the other pieces of support flow from those initial documents. So the staff report outlines a proposed timeline. So phase 1 being preparing those plans themselves. Phase 2 being then the consultation and support on the proposed plans. Phase 3 being a bylaw that needs to be adopted, and then phase 4 is the provincial implementation. So the province is quite a lengthy lag time from when a application is submitted to when the tax will be implemented. So the timeline in the report looks at implementation January 1st, 2027, which flows back into a end of February or March submission date of 2026, and we sort of go backwards from there. In meeting with Tourism Bowen, They recommended that a more accelerated timeline may be possible. So you'll see in your report, in one of the attachments, there's the initial proposed timeline and there's an accelerated timeline. The key difference being essentially running phase 2 and 3 in parallel once the initial phase is done and compressing those timelines a bit. So seeing the consultation support gathering taking less time and bylaws taking less time. And I note in the report, and we'll note here, that's something I think that we would assess after completion of phase 1. So some of the timeline in this is sort of experience learned from our previous iteration of MRDT application, which was in 2020, which failed to gain the required support from accommodation providers. And so we purposely lengthened the timeline to allow time for the accommodation providers to be familiar with the plan and the strategic plan, what we would propose to do with the money to have them put into the plan preparation, and then time to talk through any issues they have to gain support. So we have after the first phase, it looks like actually the industry is supportive of the proposed tax, it's comfortable. It leads more naturally into an accelerated timeline, but I don't know at this point to propose that accelerated timeline. And so then the phase 1 of the project is writing that 5-year strategic plan and a 1-year tactical plan, both required for the tourism side of it and an affordable housing plan. So staff proposed for the strategic plan, working with Tourism Bowen and the Community Economic Development Committee on the plan creation. We want to hold industry workshops. So I think the report talks about accommodation providers, and I think Tourism Bowen's letter about other industry, people in the industry, not necessarily just providers, but other tourism industry makes sense. We would look to hold as well a public open house on the plan. And I noted in the report, but Tourism Bowen has a community-based responsible visitation plan that is their strategic plan, and we could use that as the building block for a 5-year strategic plan. And then work with the Housing Advisory Committee on the affordable housing plan. One of the key pieces of doing the plan is knowing how much money you have to spend in the budget for the plan. And there is quite a range of estimates of what that revenue could be. So ranging from $78,000 at the low end to $300,000 annual revenue at the high end, from a number of monitoring agencies. And so to say here, through the preparation of the plan, we would work to continue to refine those revenue projections. And it may be that the budgets for the plans have sort of, a threshold. They say, well, if we have this much money, this is what we spend it on. And then as we would have more revenue, we could spend it on these additional items. But not commit to them, because what we don't want to do is have a plan that says we will confidently spend $250,000 in a year and then find out that we're actually short. And then when we come to council at this point, one of the things that we're looking for direction on is the annual tax rate. So it can be set up to a maximum of 3%. Seems that's the trend we've been seeing, is that people are, now that they can go up to 3%, most places have it at 3%. It used to be the maximum was 2%, and so a lot of them were at 2%. But looking for just that council clarity on direction. And the second one being the revenue allocation. So the 2020 project had a 50-50 split between tourism and affordable housing. And that's what staff are proposing as well, but wanting input from council at this point as well on clear direction on that allocation. Yeah, and trying to weigh sort of, potential needs of the revenue in the community, but weighing it too with the need to gain accommodation provider support for the tax to go forward. And so the recommendation is for council to direct staff to prepare those plans that are needed for the application and to give direction to staff on the 3% tax rate and the 50-50 allocation or other alternatives as selected by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And we'll look to council for questions, starting with Councillor Getty and followed by Councillor Morse. Yeah, Councillor Fast.
Through the chair, so on page 6 of your report, you indicate that the total eligible rooms available are 217. But somewhere in the report, I read that providers that have less than 4 rooms are not required to be notified, or they don't get a vote or something.
Yeah,
I don't remember how it's worded, but
the chair, there's different thresholds. You are required to do consultation with the entire industry, and you are required to show support from people who have more than 4 rooms and who don't advertise entirely through an online platform like Airbnb.
all right. So the last time we got 7 companies or groups replying to this. Is that the total number of people that were eligible, or is that lower than?
So in the 2020, there were 7 that we were required to gain support from. Yeah, and we have a list now from Destination BC, but I think there's some refinement. There's some names on the list that I think are no longer operating more than 4 rooms after the changes to short-term rental. Whereas there are others who I'm aware of who aren't on the list. So we sort of refine it, and Destination BC provides the list, but then ultimately the municipality or the local government can say, actually, this is the appropriate list. These places don't qualify, and this one should be on the list.
So then, and of those 7, 5 were opposed, and 2 of them said that they were opposed to the full 3%, would have preferred 2%. And the other one said that they didn't have enough time to think about it because it was a very short timeline for that consultation. So how much flexibility do we have at this point in terms of indicating to the users that it could be 1, 2, 3%, a range of 1 to 3%, as opposed to indicating that our preference would be for the 3%? Whether or not we've got room to negotiate.
The chair, I mean, I think there would be, like, we're looking for now for that initial direction. If we do the industry outreach to the plan preparation, and it's pretty clear that the support is there, but at a lower threshold, we would be bringing that back to council. So the tax rate that should set when council has a bylaw, that's what sets your proposal to the province is what's in the bylaw. But then it's supported by the plan itself. Which should, match and say we're having a tax of this percent of making this much money. But the bylaw is what actually then formally requests the province to establish the tax rate.
And there's some indication on this list that, or on your table, that there's a fee from the Ministry of Finance and Airbnb.
Yes, so there's essentially a tax administration fee. And so it's per property per month, but then it's for things like Airbnb, they charge one flat fee for all the properties that are just listed through that platform.
Is that amount subject to change? Not very much, 3,000.
Yeah, through the chair, I would imagine at some point they increased it. Yeah.
So what I would find helpful, and I don't see in here, is some estimate of if the bylaws had 1% and there's X number of rooms, what the potential income could be, and 2% and 3%, so that we've got some idea of what the range is. Is that possible?
Through the chair, so the range that I gave in the presentation is sort of 80 to 300,000. That's at a 3% range. So you could, a 1% range would be whatever that is, 30 to 100,000.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Getty. Over to you, Councillor Morse.
Okay, thank you. I guess I just want to clarify in the timeline. Phase 1 plan preparation, you're talking about completing a plan, and complete sounds like done, finished, whatever, and now we're going to, because in phase 2, you say consult with. So I guess what you're intending to do is draft a plan with some consultation with the industry and everything. And then do formal consultation once the plan is in the final draft stage.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. And in phase 4, you've said provincial implementation, and the narrative says for a January 2027 implementation. But for phase 4, you've got February to December 2027.
That's correct. So the province requires a 9-month lead time to implement it. So I think in my timeline, I had coming to, the latest I could be to council is the second meeting in February to submit it March 1st. So then a 9-month timeline, I would, I would prefer to be a couple council meetings before that so that it's not.
So you're hoping for January 2027, but you're allowing extra time for council. For the province to take their time.
That's correct. And some of that's based on thinking that, well, a nice time to start is the start of the year. You're going to start at any point rather than like a December 1st. Makes more sense.
I don't have any problem with the 3% because anywhere you stay in a hotel these days or pay for accommodation. I think that tax we paid in Vancouver was higher than 3%. But, so I think people are used to seeing that's fine, and it's not gonna be a rate charge, like when they advertise their room rate, it's not gonna include the 3%, it's gonna be the room rate plus 3% at the time the bill's presented. So I'm understanding correct, it's shown separately, so I don't have a problem with the 3%. I am a little concerned about the 200, it's 217 rooms, and that's a number you reconcile to the business licenses?
Through the chair, that's the number of rooms that Hamari currently identifies in the Bowen.
So how many rooms, but don't we ask people on our business license for how many rooms they've got?
Through the chair, we don't have that easily, like, we don't have that easily tallied.
We need to change the form so we can easily tell. Okay, and then, the other question was just, it'll be, I don't know how many accommodation providers we're gonna lose because of the change in the rules that went into effect on November 1st. So if these numbers are based on 2024 listings, then there could be a significant number less. So this. And they're very different, yes, so. I'd love to see full reports in the methodology, so is that available?
Through the chair, we could provide that.
Yeah, you've got, yeah, thanks, I can come and have a look at copies, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Over to you, Councillor Fest.
Thank you. Some of my questions have been answered, Chair, but I wonder if my concern about the 7 or how many of the providers saying no, again, if the providers don't support it again, I'm looking at the text on page 100, page 3 of 8, right under the table. It says regulations require a minimum level of support of at least 51% of the accommodation providers, representing at least 51% of the total number of units of accommodation. And it occurs to me that on one side, I'm hearing that it's the biggest providers with over a certain number of rooms. But on the other hand, I'm hearing that we've got lots of smaller providers. And I'm wondering, am I understanding that we would only be asking the larger providers for their support? In which case we might be in the same situation, or would it be possible to spread it out to some of the smaller providers as well, who might have more of a sustainability focus perhaps than a larger business?
For that question through to staff.
Through the chair, we're required to show support from those larger accommodation providers. We're required to meet those thresholds for people that have 4 or more units and don't just advertise online.
Okay, so it is the.
It is those, we are also required to consult with the general tourism industry and to show support, general support from the general tourism industry as well.
Okay.
Sort of both.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fest.
I'm in support of this. I don't mean to be negative. I think it's a good idea. I'm glad we're doing it.
Councillor Getty.
I'm not sure if I'm in favor of this or not, because I think that the advertising of 3%, if that was one of the major stumbling blocks the last time, then I think that we need to possibly be more flexible. So if we could have had a majority of the service providers, and that's essential for this to get any kind of approval, at 2%, then at this point, it's all gravy for us. We haven't had this income and we need it. So it may not be as much, but it, depending on the numbers that we use, I mean, you've got 3 different estimates of the numbers of rooms that are available. So, 3% of the smallest number of rooms is, 58,000, and the 3% of the largest number of rooms is 245,000. Either one is helpful. Either amount, whether it's divided, however we divide it up is another question. But it seems to me that if we want to get maximum buy-in, and they told us the last time if it had been 2%, they would have, then I think we should consider some sort of flexibility on that particular number.
Okay, so 58,000, if you say at 2% is 32,000, at 1% is 16,000. I did have a look at the report from the last, I didn't bring it with me. And I'm not sure how much the two that were concerned about the rate, whether it would have changed their minds or not from sort of reading. But if you go out and you're doing, this is what we're proposing to do, and you say the rate's 3, but the legislation allows the others, and we want 3, then if we get a big pushback from everybody on the 3, well, then we can change course right away at the beginning and go for 2. But I think we should tell them off the top that we would like 3. Otherwise, we're going to get huge debates, and nobody, if we go through a range, and naturally, everybody's going to say 1. I mean, that's just, like human nature. So let's go for 3.
Councilor Morse. My comments here are, I would very much be in support of the 3. I believe that as from my seat as mayor, and I know that frequently from the perspective of council, 2 of the hottest button issues that we receive feedback on are the creation of affordable housing and the management of tourism, particularly congestion in the Cove. And on the latter, we've heard nonstop throughout the summer months and the peak season months that the current impact of tourism as experienced by congestion in Snug Cove across the island is becoming untenable, as well as the stories of folks needing to move off the island or struggling to find housing and struggling to find affordable options for housing. I'm in favor of the 3%. I believe that there's a messaging campaign that can happen that would bring the community on side, and particularly if it's communicated strongly by council and staff. I believe that this council has taken strong steps to protecting housing stock on the island, especially with our revision and the opting in of the short-term rental regulations from the province. Ultimately, if there's not funding to adapt to this increasing supply of accommodation on the island, then we'll be left with the need to more tightly regulate that supply in order to mitigate impacts. And that can be done at this level as well. My preference would be to raise funds and raise revenue that we can work with and adapt to that. The housing issue is a separate one. I know that council's taken steps towards forming a community-owned housing organization, and that will require funding as well. If we're talking about $16,000 of funding at 1%, I mean, that's not going to get us anything, either in terms of housing or tourism management. Particularly in tourism management, I look at infrastructure in the Cove and the need to update wayfinding, to reconfigure some of the infrastructure down there, and some of the public works needs. We've had a tourism plan that was submitted by Tourism Bowen Island that has a long list of wishes and desires and things that certainly could be accomplished on the island in regards to tourism. That said, I think there's a need. What I would be interested in hearing, I think, is I don't know if this is answerable from staff at this point. If this was implemented tomorrow and we had a 50-50 split, like what projects would that fund? Given the acute nature of some of the phenomena that we're experiencing on the island with regards to tourism and with regards to housing, if the municipality had money today or for the next peak season to start putting money towards, I mean, what would that fund, or where does staff foresee that going?
Sure, I mean, that's a great question. I know the last plan's focus was on essentially trying to promote off-season tourism, and essentially trying to say we're trying to manage it by spreading out. And so the metrics were around encouraging longer stays up in shoulder seasons, and then increasing like the tourism kiosk staffing throughout the season. And that was one of the big identifications. I mean, that was pre-COVID, right? And so we've all known sort of the seismic shift that's occurred. And that's why, one of our key things I think would be looking at the tourism development 2023 plan, saying, okay, what from those we want to pull into the 5-year strategic plan. And I think some of it probably would come out to increase manning hours of that, so that we're not just manning it right in the peak, but we're also managing it through the shoulder season. So maybe we've seen that increase already, but then it's less managed in the sense there's less guidance for people in Snow Cove who arrive in October and still want to come and see what's going on Bowen, what should I do? Need for the help at that time.
Okay. I would question a little bit the notion of spreading out tourism across the season. I don't think that will come. I don't think off-season tourism is going to come at the expense of reducing peak season tourism. But peak season tourism is going to happen at the levels it's going to happen at now or greater. And our ways to manage that from an overnight perspective are dealing with short-term rental accommodations, because they are the only stock of housing. So I'm curious, I'm also curious, given that we've opted into the provincial regulation, part of that opting in was the ability to receive data and get enforcement. I know that we get a lot of data through our Hamari provider already. Are we anticipating when do we anticipate getting data from the province now that short-term rentals are needing to be registered with them as well?
In the spring, this last spring, if they were anticipating a 2025 rollout, I haven't had an update, and we are approaching 2025. So that kind of tells me we might be fall of 2025 as opposed to early.
Great. Councillor Getty, followed by Councillor. Actually, I'm going to go to Councillor Waite first as a first-time speaker, followed by Councillor Getty.
Through the chair, just wondering if, on that last point, just lost my train of thought.
I use that.
Okay.
3 o'clock in the morning when it comes back, don't comment.
Yeah.
Next question, but I'll come back.
Absolutely. Over to you, Councillor Getty.
So if we have a communication strategy that includes all of that, but I agree with everything that you've said. I was thinking that I traveled to Bhutan and they charged me $100 a day to be a tourist in their country, and I had to hire their driver and hire their guide. And it was a fantastic experience. So, I think that 3% on just the accommodations, not the ferry ride coming over and all the rest of it, is not a whole lot for the tourist. Would be magnificent for us, but we have to have 51% of the 51%. So in terms of making sure that we can sell it to that important group so that they don't disagree, that they actually go along, I think is our challenge.
Absolutely. Councillor Waite.
Yes, through the chair, I'm just wondering, with the provincial tools, a lot of the difference in the estimate of revenue depends on which platforms are included. So with the provincial tools, will they be including all platforms and also rentals that are not on platforms?
Sure. I mean, they would be including essentially it's like provincial sales tax revenue would be their data. So the provincial sales tax that's charged already on overnight accommodation. That would be the data that's driven, that where the revenue amounts come from. Yeah, so when I inquired with Destination BC, they said they're not able to provide that because they don't break it down separately until somebody has applied for the MRDP as part of their 9-month implementation. Is built to I guess distinguish just Bowen Island accommodation providers and those PST. Sort of frustrating because I was hoping that they already had it available to share with us, to give us a number, because that number exists. It's just the sales tax is collected. And so, yeah, there's quite a spread. Yeah, that we'll continue working on seeing how we can refine it.
Thanks, everybody, for the good discussion. I don't have another question. I just wanted to say I support the comments about the changes since COVID, the increase in the summer visitation, which I don't see going down. Another expense we've got is the multi-use pathway as a kind of way to perhaps ease congestion in the cove and across the island, as you put it, but also feeds into the vision of a walk-on island of walks. And maybe there's something in that rather than inviting even more people to the island in the off seasons, that we could focus it more, as I think I saw in the some of the tourism planning that's there, and certainly it's already in our special community plan and in our some of the background, the support from the other groups for the multi-use pathway from our other committees, and that's what I want to find is the solve multiple problems with one solution, and I think the MRDP at that 3% is going to help us do that. And if we hear otherwise in the consultation, that's what consultation is for. It's for us to consider that. So I'm in support of the motion, and I'd be prepared to make it.
I'm just going to clear the speakers list first. Over to you, Councillor Morrison.
Just a vague recollection that until a couple of years ago, at some point, the MRDT was only going to be required to be charged by the people that were or collected by the people that had more than 4 or more rooms, because provincial sales tax also didn't apply to people that had fewer than 4 rooms. So was that rule back in 2020, or did that change before 2020?
That changed before 2020, I believe around 2018, and I believe it was around the same time that you could now use it for affordable housing funds. Yeah, they have a category they call OAP, so online accommodation providers, which is essentially that, like, you know, I have 1 room, I post it on Airbnb, because now Airbnb collects the DST.
Just remember, I think when we were originally going to do it, part of the pushback was, well, we're going to have to charge it, but all the others that are our competition aren't going to have to charge it.
Yeah, so definitely, you know, 10 years ago, that would have been the case.
Yeah, in 2018, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 years.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Over to you, Councillor Fast, for the recommendation.
Thank you. I move that council direct staff to prepare a 5-year strategic business plan and an affordable housing plan as a prerequisite for an application for the municipal and regional district tax, and that the strategic business plan and the affordable housing plan be based on a tax rate of 3% with an allocation of 50% to tourism initiatives and 50% to affordable housing initiatives.
Moved by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Morris, and I'm going to ask that these clauses be severed. So we'll ask for the, we'll look at discussion and debate for the first clause. Seeing none, I'll call the question on the first clause. The council directs staff to prepare a 5-year strategic business plan, an affordable housing plan as a prerequisite for an application for the municipal and regional district tax. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And this second clause will move that this be referred to a future strategic planning session of council. Is there a seconder for that? Second by Councillor Wake. And just speaking to this, I believe that this clause is slightly premature. I think there's direction to staff to go out and begin doing the work of the MRDT. However, I'm not fully convinced that we know the full allocation, given that we have soft numbers as to what financing is available. We have soft numbers as to what tourism needs are available. And we have soft numbers as to what will be required by our community housing organization. And I believe that there's the opportunity for staff to start doing some of this work and framing some of this up with a future discussion as to where council would like to allocate between affordable housing and tourism, as well as what the ultimate percentage will be, given some perhaps initial soft consultations and review by staff. Yes. Councillor Fast.
I thought we had the second part was already moved and seconded.
Moved and seconded, and I called for us to sever the two clauses.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's gone, right? It's still moved and seconded?
It's moved and seconded, and then to deal with the second clause, I'm making a motion to refer to council to strategic planning.
Oh, defer. Got
Yeah,
it. Got it. Thank you.
Refer.
Refer to a committee of the whole?
Yeah, to a committee of the whole or a strategic plan session.
Thank you.
Councillor Morse?
Why would you not refer it to the December 16th? I guess my question would be, in preparing the plan, given the range of numbers, they're gonna have to prioritize what the money would be used for. So is the concern the 50-50 or is the concern the rate?
So from the seat of the chair, I have concerns both about the 50-50 and the concern of the rate. Obviously, I'm in support of 3%. However, until I believe there's some preliminary work done on reviewing Tourism Bowen's tourism management plan, as well as some of the needs that are going to come up around the community organization, that setting a 50-50 rate is premature. And I believe the council may want the ability, as well as staff may want the flexibility to adjust that rate once the planning becomes a bit more detailed. Seeing no further questions or comments, I'll call the question on referring the second clause to a future strategic planning meeting of council. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand, say nay.
I in favor.
I'm opposed.
That carries with Councillor Fast in opposition. Thank you. And moving on to 8.2 Youth Center Grant Application, we have Jillian Grant, our Manager of Recreation and Community Services, here with us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I've done a presentation on this, just some notes to speak to the item. So the provincial civil forfeiture grant program is one that BIM has successfully applied to in the past, and we've been strongly encouraged to do so again. Local Bowen RCMP constable town suggested a collaborative approach, a collaborative application to the program, as he's in very strong support of creating a dedicated youth center on Bowen. He repeated just last week how much that's needed on the island. He's reviewed the prepared application, which requests funding in the amount of $40,000 to build a top-notch space for the approximately 250 youth on Bowen that are high school age. The need for a new home for the youth center has been a rising issue for the last couple of years, as the Bowen Children's Center has been planning for and has now initiated their much needed expansion to better serve the island's youngest residents. Their programming in the same space used by the youth center now runs 6 days a week. The tables, the chairs, and the toilets are all sized for toddlers, and the walls are filled with resource materials for families of young children. And while they continue to graciously accommodate a Friday night youth drop-in, it's really not an ideal environment anymore for the high school youth, and they really don't consider it their space at all. Enhancing youth services is an identified need in BIM's recreation plan, and this grant would give us the funding to create a space that Bowen's teens can be excited to go to. Because a youth center is not just a place where they can go and be themselves, casually hang out, play board games, foosball, table tennis, guitar, or do homework after school. It's where the youth feel ownership of their space, and then they're more likely to come for classes like leadership training, job skills, and other workshops. It serves a critical community role as a reliable and discreet source of information through displayed materials and connection to youth workers about how to access mental health or addiction support and other social services. Because this age are awfully deeply private and easily embarrassed about their health needs, and making this information very easily available removes a big barrier to them. And maybe most importantly are the youth at risk, that they need a space too, that they can go and just be themselves and build those important community connections that helps to keep them away from negative behavior. Here, the youth services team can help them to develop new relationships and knowledge, to learn how to manage emotions and actions, acquire new skills. By creating this dedicated space, we'd be taking a very strong step in enhancing the community services aspects within the Department of Recreation and Community Services. The Recreation Department has been considering options on the island for relocating the youth center,
and why a dedicated space is preferred for this age group. We looked at local and international research on creating youth-centered spaces, and they all highlight the importance of youth feeling ownership of a purposely designed space that serves their diverse needs. In 2021, the City of West Vancouver specifically recommended a dedicated location to be used and permanently created the Youth Hub. So this grant application does identify a rental suite in the lower floor of the new health center as a prime location. And this idea was brought to us by an employee of the health center who used to work in our recreation department and has extensive prior experience working with youth at risk in Vancouver. He saw a perfect fit that combines the Health Center Foundation goals for community wellness, the needs of Bowen youth, proximity to existing health services, and great potential in program collaboration. So for example, right away, we're already speaking with the Foundry North Shore and who'd be very excited to come on Pro D days, school Pro D days, and offer free counseling, mental health counseling to the students in the youth center down below. So this location ticks off a lot of boxes. It already has same level wheelchair access, bike parking, private entrance. They can put a basketball hoop and do skateboarding at the fire hall. And while it's very easy to get to, accessible by bus or in any way, it also offers privacy and discretion for a kid seeking a counselor may need. Additionally, the move-in renovations are relatively minimal and predictable compared to some of the other options on the island. So after review of the other locations, this emerged as the favorite spot for a new youth center and thus proposed in the grant application. However, should council choose to pursue a different option, I don't anticipate that change of location presenting a problem with the grant funders for the application. A full budget proposal will be coming forward for the 5-year plan for the budget consideration process. And also that if this grant funding was received in a lower amount anticipated, then some of that move-in work could be phased, or some of it perhaps not fully acquired, like putting in a drop ceiling to hide the mechanical elements of in the roof. So that's your question.
Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Summers.
To the chair, this all is a great idea, so I fully support anything along these lines. Because as you probably know, like just 10 years ago, I was a teenager myself, so. My only question is, the grant itself, is that capital spending or operational? And if it's capital, which I presume it is, like to get the rentals done and talk about that kind of thing, would the operational piece of that, the year-to-year cost, would that be something that's typically would just come under the rec budget in any event?
Through the chair, it has for the last many years. The operational budget for the youth center has come through our.
So this whatever grant amount turns out to be would be to get that space ready for.
Fully kitted out and ready to go. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Councillor Wick.
Through the chair, the space that you've identified in the health center, is it currently under use?
Through the chair, no, it's not. The health center is thrilled by this proposal, quite honestly. They, I think they're holding off really advertising the availability of the space. Their decision on us. They love the adjacency of the services and the opportunity that it brings. Undoubtedly, they would love the steady, reliable income, I imagine as well, but it is a good fit, and they've offered things like use of the staff room that's adjacent to the facility, and it comes fairly ready to go.
Great idea.
Councillor Fest.
Thank you. I'm in support of this. I think I remember back before we were a municipality.
98 or 97, yeah.
Yeah, the Bowen Island Parks and Rec Commission was trying to help with this kind of thing, and I think it moved around a few times in those early days, and the need was clear then, and it still seems clear to me now. And this one is down closer to the cove where I think more young people could access it. And I love the idea of the basketball hoop in the fire hall parking lot. Like, that's what I mean about the multi-solving. It's great idea. I support it, but did I see that the grant application is due today?
It is due today, and I apologize for that.
No,
Yes, it is due today. It's actually fully ready to go.
Right. Gotcha. Well, I'm in support. Thank you.
Councillor Getty, followed by Councillor Morris.
So, way back when I first came, there were the group of kids that hung out on the dock, and they had a black and white picture of them all together down on the dock, and I think that was to commemorate the loss of one of the kids. And I believe it was a firearm accident. And so the kids got together and started getting something organized so that they would have a place to meet other than the dock and the pouring rain. So if this is, it keeps growing and it keeps happening. So it's this would be a fantastic resource for the community. And I think that I'm fully in support, and I'll read the recommendation if we're ready for it.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Going to say, I remember when we started this whole thing and they used to sit on the stairs at the general store and meet, because that's the only place there was.
Thank you. Not from the gallery, unfortunately.
No.
Over to you for the recommendation. Councillor Getty.
I move that council support staff applying for a BC government grant in the amount of $40,000 to enable the creation of a dedicated youth center on Bowen Island, including site move-in renovations, purchase of a new furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Moved by Councillor Getty, seconded by Councillor Wake. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. We look forward to the business case.
Hold up. Some other there.
(8.3) Library Budget 2025. And Nielsen on hat.
Angela Reedish.
Angela Reedish joining us here today from the library and the library board.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. I'm very pleased to be here to present the library's 2025 proposed budget. On my left is Board Chair Don Heth, and my right is Finance Chair Angela Reedish. So thank you all so much. I'm gonna pass it over to Board Chair.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Don Heth, and as was mentioned, I have the honor of being the chair of the Board of Trustees of the library. Right here to present our budget request for 2025. At presentations like this, I'd like to point out to people that the Bowen Library is the first thing people see when they arrive in our community. And I don't think there's any other community in Canada that can say that. And it shows something I think really important about Bowen Island, which is that our gateway is a library. And we're quite proud of that. And we're also proud of the building that we serve as tenants of, and that's the old general store, which, as was pointed out earlier, just celebrated its 100th anniversary. You can see that on the photograph there. I wonder if some of you were part of that photograph. We had a pretty good turnout for it. And we thank you too, by the way, for the support that enabled that celebration. We're quite proud of the tenancy that we have in the building, and you can see that in that photograph, which shows, I think, people from every demographic across the island. That's the kind of support that, as a library, we hope we will be celebrating at our 100th anniversary. And our goal is to be there for the community, just as the general store has been there for the community. And we think the key to achieving that is there in that photograph, if you look at the front row, where you can see all age groups, including children, young adults, and even infants and baby strollers. I'm going to come back to that theme a little bit later on because we have what I think is an exciting plan regarding that. But what I'd like to do, first of all, is acknowledge that this community and this council in particular has been very supportive of our efforts. And
To show you the fruits of that, I'd like to turn it over to Tina to describe some of the new initiatives that we've done past year.
So just wanted to highlight some of the things that happened in 2024 that were successes for us. You may recall that all libraries in British Columbia received an enhancement grant from the province in 2023 to be used over the next 3 years, 23, 24, and 25. We used a portion of that enhancement grant, about $29,000, to purchase some of the items that you see on your screen there. So one is the soundproof booth, and then a number of items that were for collection development. So the enhancement grant, we purchased the soundproof booth, which it provides a private, quiet space for 1 or 2 people to study, work, or meet. It's interesting that libraries have spent decades making ourselves not be quiet spaces where people say shush all the time. And then we've discovered we still need some quiet space for people to study and work. So we have this great option for people to actually book during the day. And it's been successful, being used about 3 times a day on average, which at 2 hours a day is most of the day. We also expanded some of our collections. We purchased paper copies of the Times Literary Supplement and the New York Times weekend papers, mostly for their literary focus in both of those journals, and they're available for the public to use. We also purchased a number of electronic databases that are learning databases, so Creative Bug and Mango Languages, both databases that any library patron can access online. Focus in both of those journals, and they're available for the public to use.
Trying to see the slide.
Right, and anyways, so Mango Languages is much, as you would guess, a language learning database, and Creative Bug is a crafting and art learning database. People can take courses there. We also added the community calendar, which we're very proud of, which came through our own funding, not through the enhancement grant. And it's an addition to our website that allows anyone in our community to add their events, whether it's an individual, a group, or a business, to go in and add their event that's happening on Bowen Island. And we're very proud of that and really want to get word out so that more people use it. What we love about it is it's one place where you can go and see a calendar of everything that's being offered on a certain day or a certain time. And it's not reliant upon an algorithm of a for-profit organization that's going to feed you what it believes you should see in order to spend money. So it's once we get everybody committed to actually posting their things on there, it'll be that one sort of great space where everybody can see what's happening in the community at a given time. So those are some of the things that we're quite proud of that happened in 2024, in this year. Next slide, Sophie, thanks. So I'm just going to outline some of the highlights of what we're asking for in the 2025 budget. So the main thing for the municipality is that we're asking for an increase of $28,156 over last year's municipal contribution. That 5.7% increase is directly related to payroll increases. So 75% of that ask, about $21,000, is increases that are policy-driven increases for step increases for those who are eligible to move to their next pay band step, and for cost of living allowance. This budget has been submitted to CFO Kristen Watson, and the COLA that was used to calculate this was 3%. However, if the COLA comes in at a different amount, which Ms. Watson tells me we'll know sometime in the next couple of weeks, then it would be adjusted accordingly as the rest of BIM staff would, numbers would be adjusted based on whatever the COLA is that is determined. The other payroll change is a request to increase current staff hours by 2.5 hours per week. So the additional hours would allow us to improve our communications and marketing, and to expand on some of our adult programming and outreach to adults and to seniors particularly. We'd like to really kind of spend a bit more time reaching out to Sky and some of the other groups on island and flesh out our adult programming a little bit more. So we know from our recent survey that there are services that we provide that the library, that the community is unaware of. So it's always great. We have a survey that's open right now. It's about to close, to see the comments from the public, to say, it'd be great if you did this. And we think we do that. So we clearly need to communicate better the things that we already do. So it's a great opportunity, and we'll certainly use that commentary from the survey to add in our newsletter, sort of FAQs and did you know, that sort of thing. So some of these hours would be used to help flesh out and expand that marketing and communication. If people don't know about it, they're not going to use it. So we're really looking at targeted marketing that will help make services like the community calendar and the MedShed a little more visible for people to know about and more widely known. And as well as helping with our adult programming, as I said, and outreach with seniors. So the increase in the staff hours brings one staff member up to eligibility for benefits. So you can see that the actual cost of the wages is fairly low at $4,300, but there are benefits. And now that this person becomes eligible for benefits, so it ups by just over an additional $6,000. And just to let you know that the library follows whatever policy the municipality has for benefit eligibility and the payment of benefit costs. So this is calculated on the current policy of how benefits are calculated. If that changes before next year, then we would of course follow suit and adjust accordingly. I think there's something on your agenda coming up. So we are covering, so we're the total cost, the total increase is about 32,000, and we're asking for 28,000 roughly to be covered by BIM. So that additional just under $4,000 in extra cost is being covered by the library through some reductions in expenditures and also some increases in revenue. So our printing service is garnering more revenue than we had anticipated, and we're expecting some higher donations and grants in the coming year. Sophie, if you can skip 2 slides ahead, we'll come back to this one. We just thought it was actually makes more sense for me to continue talking about the enhancement grant. So the enhancement grant that we received, which was about $163,000, we've only expended $29,000. And we've gone through a few considerations of how to spend the rest of that funding. Most of the libraries in BC have been struggling a little bit with this enhancement grant funding because it's one-time funding. It's tough to come up with something very quickly that isn't something you want to carry on. But we've thought about a few different things. We're going to continue with some of the collection development expansions that we have started with. But in October, the board agreed that the best use of the remaining funds was to create a children's and youth services position. So it would be a temporary position for 2 years, 2025 and 2026. We have received approval from the province, who has given us this grant, that we can carry it over for an extra year. And so that's the plan, is to create this new position and implement it in the new year. So just, I'm hoping that you know that Children's and Youth Services is just a mainstay of public libraries, but why are we creating this now is because for a number of years we've had a couple of volunteers who have assisted us with some of the programming. And we've also had staff who are working on the programming, but it's not their primary job. So they're doing it off the side of their desk as an addendum to try to, meet the needs. And we do our best to deliver service excellence as much as possible within our current staffing framework. However, we know that we can do more. We know there's more that could be done, and we would like to be doing more of that is done in many libraries. So we know we can expand our existing programming to all year. Currently, baby time, story time does not happen all year long. We can provide other services such as class visits. We get requests occasionally for classes to want to come to the library and visit. It's a challenge for us to find enough staff to manage those visits and prepare for them. And we could also do outreach to schools, to the Children's Center, to IDLC, to IPS, et cetera, to promote the library and bring information to them, to the kids in those organizations. So developing partnerships with schools and preschools is really important, and it's a struggle for us to do that now and really manage that as well as we could. Dedicated support for our summer reading club staff, so someone to really manage that staff and plan those programs in advance, which are all we're doing as best we can, but limited by current staff availability. So in our recent survey that I just mentioned, the community identified children's services as the second highest way that they felt we can help the community. Number one being prioritizing the library as a community gathering space, which we do, and I think children's services is part of that, making community gathering space. The community response also lists children's programs and events as the second most important service that we can offer, only behind our books, our physical collections. So we know that in the community, there is response that that children's services are very important and highly valued by members of our community. So a dedicated children's services position enables the library to expand our offerings for children, youth, families, caregivers, and to relieve some of our staff from those duties that they currently are doing to try to support children's services so that they can focus on the duties that are in their job description and expand some of the roles that they have their core responsibilities. Sophie, could you go back to, I'm going to pass it over to our finance chair.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes so that this is the budget as it's presented in your material and to make sure that it kind of aligns for you with what Tina just described. So this is a consolidated budget, right? It consolidates the enhancement grant and our regular revenues and expenditures. And even though they are sort of separate in that the enhancement grant was given to us to enhance services and not to replace ongoing activities. If you look at the 2024 budget, you'll see that the enhancement grant revenue, we were hoping to take 144 out of the reserve for the enhancement grant. And most of it would have been spent on capital. That's the 113 that last year we said we would spend on capital. As the year progressed and we got estimates for the cost of capital structures, we realized that they were completely different from what we had previously anticipated, and that was not a sensible way to go forward. So the board took some time to sort of rethink about what would be the most useful and effective way to spend the money. And as Tina said, the way that the board determined was this 2-year contract position. So what you can see, so we did not spend that 113, most of it is sitting in the reserve. And if you look at it this year, if you look at EG operations and new position, you'll see that for 2025, we anticipate spending 68,000, and that'll leave exactly 54,000 for the following year for this 2-year contract position. Okay, that's sort of it for the enhancement grant, right? So they're pulling out the money, pulling out this year 79,000, pulling out in 2026 54,000, emptying that reserve for the enhancement grant. Then if you look at, excuse me, at the regular expenditures, you'll see that the regular payroll increases by 32,000. And that's the number that Tina mentioned is reflecting primarily COLA and step increases, but also that increase in hours for one employee. And then the increase that we're asking for the municipal contribution, the 28,000 in the very top line, is to be used primarily for that increase in payroll. So the 28,000 mostly would go to meeting that $32,000 increase in payroll. But we've also found money, as Tina said, from revenues, donations, and we've slightly managed to trim something off the other operations. So as I say, this page is the consolidated budget, but really we sort of have the enhancement grant buckets, if you like, and then we have the regular operations budget.
We do have a column that says 2027 in that budget, just, and that's an aspiration. That should the children and youth services position be successful, which we anticipate it will, that we have funding until 2026, and we will hire someone on a temporary contract position. No guarantee that there would be anything past that, but of course, our aspiration, assuming it's successful, would be to carry it on in the future. And so you see a number there that bumps up our payroll quite significantly in 2027. That would be where suddenly that position, if we were to continue it on, needs to be funded from somewhere else, that there isn't a grant to continue funding it. Thanks, Sophie. I think we're good to go. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you'll permit me some closing remarks then. You don't have to read far in the news to know that authenticity of information is a growing concern in our society, perhaps a problem for several generations thereafter. And to know that young families are very concerned about the sources of information for their children. We believe that libraries can be part of that solution. What we're promoting in this graphic here is a sort of a cycle of literacy, in that by reaching people at all age groups, we feel we will promote a love of learning and a love of books and of information. So the enhancement grant position that we've described to you is a very important component of that, and we're quite excited about doing that. What we hope to see, as you see in the diagram there, is that province will provide some sustained funding that can allow us to take advantage of that. And if that occurs, we could have a permanent children's and youth services provider. We also hope that these funds, if we can access them, would keep our commitment to support lifelong literacy. If I could have the next to last slide. So we are requesting that you receive our report, library budget, and recommend that in the future, once it comes up, that you approve or increase of $28,156 for the funding for our library. We think it will send us, we have the next slide then. I think it will seed some very important and gratifying projects. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll be open for any questions.
I will look to council for questions or comments. Councilor Morse.
I just have to say, as usual, a very thorough and well done presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Seeing no further question, or Councilor Fast.
Just as the library board's liaison, I am happy to read the recommendation. I move that council receive for information and consideration the Bowen Island Municipality Draft 2025 Financial Plan, the 2025 Bowen Island Library, Public Library Operating and Capital Budgets.
By Councilor Fox. Seconded by Councilor Morse. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that carries unanimously. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll put the chairs back.
Yes, the next item, 8.4, Squamish language beach names updates. We have Carlos, Environment and Parks Planning, and Aaron Williams, language specialist and a member of the Squamish Nation, joining us here today. Mr. Williams, are you online with us?
See you later. Hi, good afternoon. Yes,
Good
I am
afternoon.
Aaron Williams and I'm here.
Awesome, thank you. We hear you loud and clear. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good afternoon. I won't take a lot of your time. I was last year in January, and
received direction from the Mayor and Council to request Squamish language names for 2 of our beaches. And we have since received the names, and I wish to present them to you here today. Aaron Williams will speak about the names, how he chose them, and help us with the pronunciations. So I am going to share a PowerPoint on his behalf. But yes, this is Aaron Williams. He's a consultant with the Squamish Commission, and he will be talking to you about the names today.
Over to you, Mr. Williams.
Hi, good day, everybody. Thank you for having me on this call. Yes, my name is Aaron Williams, and I come from the village known as Slaan, located in North Vancouver, just 5 minutes away from the Lonsdale Quay. For those of you that mightn't be that know North Vancouver. I speak Squamish language. I have been since the year 1984, and I've been learning Squamish language since 1984. And currently I hold a master's in linguistics from SFU, and my specific area of study that I majored in is Squamish language. I've been studying Squamish language at an academia level for the last 13 years under the direct tutelage of Dr. Peter Jacobs and Vanessa Campbell. And so, yeah, my areas of specialties include working with adults 65 years and older, reclaiming the language that they were separated from during the time of residential school, assimilation process. And also I specialize in our Squamish language written orthography that was adopted in 1981 by our Squamish chief and council at the time. So I'm happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a slideshow? Yeah, so we just have the 2 names.
Oh, okay, sorry, that was just, there's no PowerPoint.
They're just on the PowerPoint so that
So I believe it was about 2 months ago, if Carla, if I'm not mistaken, that I came to Bowen Island with my mother and my older cousin. Her name is Huachtanat, my older cousin, and her English Christian name is Kathy LaRock, and she is our oldest Squamish language teacher to date that works in our Squamish Language and Cultural Archive department. And she works primarily with our K4 and K5 students at same Skolautuk located in West Vancouver. And also my next mother, her name is Vanessa Campbell. And we came over and met Carla, and we went and proceeded to go to a couple different places. And so the first place that comes to mind, I believe, is Pebble Beach, is the first beach we went to. And upon our visit, we observed quite a few different things in and around the area. We seen a lot of horsetail that was growing there. And we also seen a lot of a very large cluster of non-Himalayan blackberries that were growing there. And that's quite rare to see nowadays because our, for lack of better terms, indigenous blackberry bushes, they're starting to get less and less common to see. So it was really nice to see that. We actually ate a couple of those berries. Anyway, there was a bit of input from Carla, and she talked about how there was sightings of mountain lions in that area. And at some points in time at this beach on the dock, I believe just to the west side of the beach, sometimes there's some sea lions that go there and kind of rest and bask in the sun. All of these factors, I'm telling you, my dear people, are very, very important facts that need to come into reason when names of places start to occur. They place very significant roles in how we name a place, because it's not a very simple task to name a place. For it is in our history and culture that we don't name a place after, let's say, the beach of Aaron Williams. We don't name it like that. No. It's a much more in-depth spiritual connection to the place, and a lot of fact-based ideals start to come into play based on that specific area. So, and one of the main things we noticed at this beach was that there was lots of little pebbles, and it was like somebody went in there and just dumped like tons of tiny little pebbles, and they were all rounded. You can tell they were rounded from the ocean. They weren't sanded or polished or anything from somebody or like something man-made. And so that was a very huge indicator to this name for me and my mother and my co-pates, my older cousin. It was very striking to us to see that. We don't really see that anymore, like in North Vancouver or West Vancouver anymore. As this indicated, this beach was very, you know, still untouched or unscathed from any development or anything like that, which was very beautiful to see. And so after a few brief discussions in person over dinner, the three of us came together and we talked about the word ayah. And that's the second word in this phrase. This is an adverbial phrase with a reduplicant in the front, and the first word is smemont, and the root word to smemont is smont, which means pebble. So when you have the reduplicant there, smemont, this is a reduplicant version of the original word, which is smont. So it means pebbles. It means more than one pebble. And so speaking to the tiny pebbles on the beach that were very rounded by the ocean, again, I must pull your interests and your minds to the idea of thinking about this now. When you often see pebbles on beaches and they're all rounded to almost the same circumference and same kind of edges, it suggests a very, very quite a few different things. But one of them is that one, there hasn't been any development there. Two, it's not utilized by a whole lot of traffic, commercial traffic, pedestrian traffic, and two, the natural flow of current is still very much alive in that water district. And so, my friends, when you think about that, often today, over 85% of the shores of British Columbia are developed now. So running across a beach like this was very, very exciting for us and very, very pleasant to be at. And so this is why the name Smemont Ayah came to light and to the surface for us, as it relates and refers to the wonderful rounded pebbles that suggest that this beach is still undeveloped or untouched since the time of when the beach was first formulated, which could have been anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 years ago. And so, with that being said, we had the name Smemont Ayah come to surface for us, and so that's the name that was approved by our Squamish Language Commission Board, and yeah, so that's the name, and it means place of pebbles is how it's being translated, and again, reference to the wonderful state and condition that the beach is in. again, once again, I pull your attention to the idea of the pebbles being so rounded, and that it suggests that that place there is still in its same condition as from the time of that beach's first inception, of when it was first developed by natural order of ocean flow, earth erosion, and winds and tides and weather. So that's the name for the first beach, I believe. And the second one here now is up onto the screen. Can you guys see the second name on the screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Great. At any point in time, if you have questions, just let me know. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. So this place here, the second beach that we went to, we know that it has a bit of history to the locals, like the first beach as well. And so I believe in the 1950s, this beach was first named Crayola Beach. And this beach here, when we got there, it was a different kind of experience when we walked there. And it was a very pleasant walk. And I was really proud of my mom because she's a bit older now. And so she was able to actually take the walk down to the beach. And those of you who are in the call here, if you know Crayola Beach, you know the walk down the hill is quite substantial. So for a 74-year-old to walk down there and back up was quite amazing to see. Not to say that my mother's weak or anything. She's been walking everywhere her whole life. And so anyway, when we were at this beach with Carla, there was a lot of things that we noticed there. One is we noticed that the beach was very, very laden with lots of barnacles. And we also noticed there wasn't as much driftwood there. And we noticed that in the area was a lot more large. It was a more large beach. Again, we noticed there was pebbles there that looked like it was dumped from somewhere, and it was very beautiful to see. But a lot of the pebbles and rocks that were there also had a lot of jagged edges, which suggests land erosion and weather erosion. And if you know this beach and you get down the end of the trail, there's a big rock there. And it looks like somebody took a large knife and just started slashing the rock. So a few names came up for this one, but one of the name that you see on the board here now is it's called Chalatan. La'an, like that. La'an. And this one here, the root word to it is chal, which means to write something or to mark something with red paint with your hand. So we have a thing in our culture, it's called tamt, and it's known to be made out of red ochre. And it's a medicine that we use to protect ourselves spiritually. And if you guys know anything about our people's history, some of our earliest ways to educate the future was to use petroglyphs. And so petroglyphs were used as a way to warn the future generations, a way to inform the future generations of our previous generations' mistakes. And so the way we used petroglyphs is we used red ochre paint mixed with seal oil and also pitch from a Douglas fir tree to make the red paint become weatherproof, to last for as many years as possible. And so this name came about based on the previous history of the locals. But more importantly, one thing that I need to mention that solidified this name was something that my mother, Vanessa Campbell, noticed. Is that there was natural red markings from previous water tides on the upper rock banks inside of this beach in this little tiny cavern on the left side of the end of the trail as you walk down. She noticed there was some red marking inside the rocks on the big, huge rock bluffs. And it was something that really stood out to her, and that it reminded her of our old way of educating the future through our petroglyphs. And so this is how the name came about, was by her noticing those old water tide markings from previous water tides, which goes to the old flood story that we have that occurred 11,500 years ago. We have an oral story of the previous flood that happened here. And so the water table that you see now in and around Bowen Island, Gold River, Vancouver Island, the water table of this area here is only 6,000 years old. And so markings like that she noticed suggests that the water levels were much different, specifically in that area. And so this is why it came to pass that the name Halaan means marked or colored on the creek or side of a rock bed. And it replaces Blue Water or Crayola name, respectively, as a result of the request of whatever mandate that had us come to do the work that we done. Again, the name here is Halaan, and the previous name is Smemant Ayah. Those are the two names that were approved, that were created by the three of us. And I'm the one that administered the names to you guys directly through Language and Culture. And so there, my friends, is the explanation of how the names came to surface for us, and those and the benefiting factors to how the names were created. That's all I have to say. Timat Quetzi and Snacham, those are my words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. That's my heart is full hearing the words of your travel to the island and to those beaches, and your and hearing the experience of your mom there as well. I'm really struck by just what feels like a deep reverence to soaking in and embodying the place as a means to have the name emerge from it in your considerations. It feels like a deeply respectful, it touches me in a deeply respectful way that I feel just a full body gratitude in receiving those names. Stimat Ayah and Halaan. It's a true privilege and pleasure to have those names provided to us by the Squamish, and thank you so much for your work on this.
It was an absolute pleasure to be a part of this process for the wonderful locals of Bowen Island, to be able to have a small piece of our identity to be in the eye of the dear locals of Bowen Island. It was a complete pleasure and honor to be asked to come and help in any which way, to be able to support not just yourselves, but especially the locals for many generations to come, to see and hear and experience some of the language of the Squamish people, and we thank you.
Thank you. I'll look to council for any questions or comments. I'm seeing some hands go together and raised, and thanks from the gallery here as well, which isn't on camera. So your efforts are deeply appreciated and received with gratitude. Any questions or comments from council or the manager at all? Councilor Morse.
It's just a process question. We're receiving the report for information, but there's an action. Or did we already approve the action in the previous resolution?
Through the chair, yes, the motion was already made in the last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, I will
I'll
look for
move the
someone to
motion. The council received Squamish language beach names report dated November 19th, 2024 for information.
moved by Councilor Morse, seconded by Councilor Fast. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 And that is wonderful. Thank you so much again for being here, Mr. Williams. Truly
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
everybody. Take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you. And moving on to 8.5, amendment to the personnel policy from our interim human resources coordinator, Christina Kelly. We have the report in the agenda to council for any questions that they might have of the human resources coordinator. Councilor Morse.
It's just a curiosity question. The reason for doing this is it says to align our benefit structure with other municipalities. But I'm looking at the examples of the other municipalities. I think they're all over the map, so we're just, so the major result is just setting out not the new calculation for health benefit costs, benefit sharing.
Right.
With, yeah. And so when it says replace with, and I'm in the page 3 of the report, so the second one says part-time employees may participate in the expanded group health and dental plan if they work 21 hours per week or more. And the employer will pay a prorated share of the premium costs based on the percentage of full-time equivalency. So that would be if they work 21 hours, it would be 21/35 of the healthcare cost. Okay, so that's fine. But then somewhere else here it said required. So coverage may be waived if the employee can show evidence of alternative group coverage. So
That's
you're
right. So how we do this right now is that if they do already have coverage, say through another spousal plan, and they don't want to pay into what we're proposing as a prorated benefits program, then it could be waived. It's not mandatory for it to be enrolled if they're part-time
with the new program.
with the new process.
Okay, so putting my risk management hat on, are you going to document and that they in no way will expect to be covered if there is an accident or an incident? Are they going to sign something?
Yes, that's right. They would have to sign something saying that they're declining coverage. Right.
And recognize that if there was an injury, they will not be covered by a medical.
Well, for a short-term, long-term disability plan, what you're referring to?
Well, I don't know. I mean, what are they declining? It says their health and dental plan, so.
Right, so there's a short-term and long-term disability aspect to the current plan, but
They have to still enroll in that.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
So it's all 3 plans or no, nothing. Yeah, okay. So my concern is if somebody says, I don't want to pay that premium, like they could use it for something, that money for something else, and they get injured on the job. And now they have no medical coverage or disability coverage. And are they then, are they going to sign something when they say they don't want to be covered? That relieves us of any potential possible liability if they get injured on the job.
Well, if it's a work safety issue, like if they're actually being injured while on the job, then that's something a bit different. But if they're getting their wages paid in terms of short-term, long-term disability, right now, no one gets that if they're working 20 hours a week. And this would still be the case. It's just if they're eligible for these prorated benefits, and that's sort of what we're saying is bringing it into alignment with other municipalities, is just that typically other ones do some sort of prorated benefit package. They're not typically paying 100% of benefits for those working 21 hours, which is what we are currently. So we're just trying to bring it into alignment in terms of not taking on that full responsibility financially.
Well, I don't have a problem with the
Yeah.
prorated. My problem is with if they choose not to opt in and they get injured.
That's right. Yeah, so we would have to have a waiver that would be approved by our legal counsel, I guess.
So that's, I guess,
Mitigating our risk.
wanting to make sure that there's a properly legally approved waiver that they would sign so that, you know, on a. Thank you.
That's a good point.
Thank you, Councilor Morris. Councilor Fast.
Thank you for this. I'm seeing that it's a cost saving measure when you hire part-time staff. So I'm wondering, can you give me any trends as to, are we hiring more part-time staff recently or?
We would like to, and we have been. So say, for instance, this bylaw officer position, we've been unable to find someone who would fill all of the skill requirements for the position. So we've elected to break it into 2 part-time positions, one a patrol aspect, one an admin aspect. And so those would be 2 part-time positions under 20 hours per week. We would like to offer one as 21 hours per week, but understanding that there's a financial implication with that. And even if some roles might not require 1.0 FTE, but they do require more than 20 hours, it's been a financial burden and something that has been a little bit challenging for us to accommodate, even if there's an operational need, just because of the additional expense. So this would just make it a little bit easier to fulfill our own operational needs, as well as with recruitment for highly talented individuals who might, that for even having a co-pay benefit system could be that factor that actually allows them to come and work with us, whereas currently we wouldn't be able to offer it. So
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm in support of this policy. It sounds like it's cost saving, but it's also giving us more flexibility to be able to do the different types of sometimes very skilled work and to be able to respond as things are changing. And so I'm in support.
I'm not seeing any further questions. Would you like to move the recommendation?
Happy to. I move that council approves the amendment to the personnel policy number 00004 as detailed in the interim human resources coordinators report dated November 25th, 2024.
Thank you. And any further discussion or debate on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Correspondence was dealt with in consent agenda. 10.1 recommendations of the Community Grants Advisory Committee regarding community grants and grants in aid. The fall, we do have our Chief Financial Officer, Kristen Watson, joining us here today. Look to council for any questions on the report before receiving the recommendation on the floor.
There's one correction to the resolution.
Okay.
It should say Island Discovery Learning Community, not Island Discovery Learning Commons.
Okay.
Other than that, as the council member on the committee, I would be happy to move the motion if there aren't any questions.
I'm not seeing anybody else in the speakers list.
Okay, the council award the following community grants: Light Up Bowen, $2,000. Island Discovery Learning Community, $2,000. Bowen Island Legion, $2,000. Bowen Island Seniors Keeping Young, $2,000. Bowen Island Community Museum and Archive, $2,000. Bowen Island Resilient Housing Society, $6,000.
Moved by Councillor Morse. Seconded by Councillor Getty. Any further discussion or debate? Councillor Fast.
I'm in support of the motion. I just was interested in the handrail on the Blue Cottage, the Blue Heritage Cottage.
That
just a sec.
Oh, it's been after, sorry.
I am, I'm wondering, I'm noticing that in the, some of the previous things we talked about today was the idea of, in the snug code guidelines, that's what it was, the design guidelines was the idea of perhaps, in the OCP, including, the old general store and perhaps the causeway. And, I would think perhaps the Blue Cottage as well in a sort of, and part of the snug code design guidelines and or some kind of heritage category. So I'd just be in support of anything that we can do. I don't know if there's any rules about it now. It's kind of refers, the report kind of refers to if any rules about the handrail. But I would just encourage that it be in the heritage style and following the style of the building as much as possible, whatever can be done. So that's my, it wasn't a question, it's more of a comment, because I don't think there's any binding rules there currently for that cottage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fest and Councillor.
I had similar concerns as or issues with as Councillor Fast did. And I actually went back and went down and had a look and then and looked back at the application. The railing is not going to be attached to the building. Off, if you go down behind, there's a new patio that's been built, and then there's a ramp that goes up. And it's to be a metal railing there on the ramp, on the new bit of sidewalk. So it's it's not attached to the building in any way.
It's still the heritage precinct as the, that whole area around the old general store and the causeway and the lighting on the other side that goes along the promenade. That was all proposed to be a sort of heritage area to connect up with the Davies Orchard and from the causeway side. So whatever can be done to do something with a metal railing that makes it look a little more like it belongs in the heritage area, that would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Fast and Councillor Morse.
Well, I guess my only other addition was that wood out in the rain like that will deteriorate very quickly compared to, and a round metal railing, you can put your hand around, you can't put your hand around a 2x4.
Councillor Getty.
The building is on the heritage registry, so they have to conform to the guideline.
Okay.
That's the other step. Thank you.
Okay, and no further speakers. I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that carries unanimously.
Aye.
And that brings us to new business updates. So 11.1 and 11.2 I will address together. Metro Vancouver business. So it's Metro Vancouver had its last board meeting of the year. There were a few pieces on there buried in the consent agenda around Metro 2050's annual performance monitoring report, dwelling unit projections update, and some strategic initiatives pieces, which are linked in the agenda should folks wish to take a look at those. TransLink also had its last meeting of the year. The only real item that was talked about was the 2025 investment plan in terms of scope. There will be some events for the board to participate, or the Mayor's Council to participate in the near future. Both of those bodies had a re-election of their chairs and vice chairs, with Mayors West and Brody being elected the chair and vice chair of the TransLink Mayor's Council, and a re-election of Mayor Hurley and Mayor McEwen as the chair and vice chair of Metro Vancouver. If there's any questions, I will hand it over to our admin trustees for an update.
Sure, I'll start. I was at Victoria December session of Trust Council, the quarterly meeting. Trustee Getty was there and Mayor Andrew Leonard came as well for part of it. So it featured the first time we got to meet the new CAO, Ruben Brownie, his second week on the job. And we heard from the Islands Trust Conservancy Chair, in similar light as to what Mayor Leonard presented, which was based on the letter that council sent through the mayor. And we removed a section of one of the steps in the update of the trust policy statement, which hopefully will streamline the process. So it'll go straight to draft, will go straight to first reading instead of going through an approval and principal stage and then going on, which I think is quite a big thing. So that's good. We approved a natural areas tax exemption program conservation covenant for North Pender. So that's where if you put part of your land under a conservation covenant through that program, you get a reduced tax rate as if you were a farm. And budget coming up next meeting, which will be in March. And I didn't get to present my Sue Big Oil idea. It wasn't really mine. It was just following up from a delegation that we'd had, but we ran out of time for a few items towards the end there. And I'll turn it over to Trustee Getty for the rest.
So we also had a half-day meeting with San Juan County. So if you look at a map and you ignore the border between Canada and the US, then there's a group of islands that come down between Vancouver Island and the mainland. And that whole long archipelago is partly administered by San Juan County and partly by the Islands Trust and other regional governments. And it's very, very interesting to meet with them. Totally different governance model. They have 3 counties and 3 representatives and very high caliber staff, much like the Islands Trust, but very fewer people involved in terms of the decision makers. So 3 as opposed to 26. And they were primarily interested in the international ways that we can cooperate with each other, in particular around oil spills. So they spend a great deal of time and they want more information, as much as we can give them, with respect to what is happening here. An oil spill could take an hour for a boat to smash up on the shores and take another couple of generations to try and clean it up. So there were some discussions about crude oil dropping and not dispersing on the rocks. And there was no mention of LNG. So I've sent some information off since. That was very interesting. And they're trying to get a Coast Guard vessel into Sydney that is organized by both levels of government, so that we've got good coverage. I was part of the CAO hiring team. We were meeting once every 2 weeks to go through all of the material that we got from the professional recruiters. And he's been an assistant deputy minister with provincial PSA, provincial, help me, what does that stand for?
Provincial, the Public Service Agency.
Thank you.
All the provincial staff.
Yeah. And it's very interesting. Just before the trust meeting, I received some sort of an email from BC Ferries, and it was signed by somebody named Angela Brony. Turns out that's his wife, and she's only recently taken that position. So they both have recent shifts, and he's got a really good understanding of provincial government and how that works. And now he's got a really good contact with the BC Ferries as well. So she's busy with their communications strategies. We had a great long meeting and lots of side conversations in terms of civil behavior. That took up a lot of time. That's why we ran out of time on some of these other items. And yes, as a follow-up to the budget, this morning there was a meeting between the 2 CFOs, both Trust and Bowen, and myself, and we're working through understanding all of the details of the numbers and doing more crunching as much as we possibly can in terms of working. We've had some success already in terms of working down the percentage and the amount that Bowen is paying. And I think there's a couple of places where we can continue to work. I don't understand it completely, but I'm really glad that I've got these 2 talking and that they're going to be helping me understand it. So we'll work through as much as we can. Yeah, it was I think one of your comments, Mayor Leonard, was that it was a bit of a marathon. So I'm glad you got to witness that. it's no lighthearted boondoggle in terms of getting a little stay over for 3 nights at, in Victoria, but, we got quite a bit done, and I think in terms of all the conversations we had about behavior, there were some improvements, so we got to work on that some more, but
One thing I forgot to mention was, after you left, to catch your plane or whatever, there was, a motion that, for trust council to ask executive committee to write you a letter in response. So we'll be getting a response. Formal.
Okay. I will look forward to that. It was it was very interesting to be in the room for large parts of those meetings, and it left me with a greater appreciation for the work and professionalism of our own trustees on the island, and the representation that they bring to Bowen Islanders, as well as a need, I believe, for our municipality as the only municipality within the Islands Trust area to have the opportunity to provide some more leadership within that organization as a whole. I was struck by what I think is probably, an advocacy to the trust as a convener of entities within the islands, whether it's on ferry issues, on planning issues, on governance issues, on ecological issues, on sustainability issues. I think there's more room for the trust, and this is my conversation with many of the trustees there, to begin really taking up that convener role, whether it's with the San Juan Islands or regional districts or First Nations and Indigenous populations. I think there's more of an opportunity for the trust, given the fragmented municipal governance in the area, to provide some leadership in convening there. But overall, it was a very great meeting, very charitably, a rich diversity of views on the trust, and I'm curious how the governance and policy statement unfolds in the future. But I feel as if we're very lucky here on Bowen Island that in our own governance we seem to be moving smoothly and taking on good constructive projects in thoughtful and constructive ways. Thank you for that update. Yes.
So was there any reaction to your presentation of the opinion vote of the elections?
There were various reactions that trustees had that I spoke to after leaving the podium. Some of them ranged from a basic, we don't feel the need to consult at all, to some very rich and warm inquiries as to how we could be engaged and what the future of the trust and Bowen Island looks like. So it feels as if, my take as an observer is that there's a lot of frothy discussion happening at the trust, and it's an organization that's figuring out some of its own identity and future and what that means for all of the stakeholders within the trust area. But there was nothing really concrete other than, because I think there's a lot of inward discussion amongst trustees as to, what it is that they would like to do and what it is that they would like to see. And that's sort of maybe trumping at the political level, at least, some of that outward communication and engagement.
Did the October 31st letter that's referred to in your delegation request to the trust, did we put that in our agenda information items anywhere?
I believe it was.
I guess it was November 9th. I haven't looked.
I think so,
because
I had it.
Well, I remember, I thought getting it being sent across, but I don't remember.
I'll look to the corporate officer too. And
Yeah.
Leonard's letter, it was on the Shepherd Shop.
It was in the information.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I
it's-
just remember 12. Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify. Anybody was watching and wanted to, and I presume you were recorded in your presentation, so we can go watch it.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good.
they have a very different system in terms of putting up the tapes. So it goes off to a private company and they do
Yeah,
something or other, and it comes back at least 3 or 4 days later. So
Yeah.
It's not as slick as ours, unprofessional or easy or whatever. But the delegations were the first morning or the first afternoon.
Yeah.
So one of the, if I can mention to this council, one of the things that Mayor Leonard was really, really good at, he gave the presentation and he was invited to sit at the table at least once. But you spent a great deal of time pigeonholing and talking to and getting conversations going with all sorts of different people at the dinners and the lunches and in the hallways and everything. That was fabulous. I think that really helped everybody calm down in terms of, you weren't there with pitchforks and, condemning them for having sent that letter. You were genuinely curious and they talked. It was good. It helped calm things down, I think.
And one more curiosity question. I'm sorry if you already said it. Any response from the minister or the ministry to the letter to NK? I didn't think it would be, it's too early process.
Yeah, although that said, I've heard rumors that Municipal Affairs is paying attention to it and that the minister has referenced it, so it may be worth considering at some future point our own intergovernmental response to what's been said there. That's fast.
And one other thing was that MLA, the Honorable Sheila Malcolmson came, former chair of the Islands Trust, but she's now one of the newly re-elected government, and also the parliamentary secretary for smaller rural municipalities.
Local governments and rural communities, Brittany Anderson.
Brittany Anderson was there. And so she's a new MLA from a rural community up near Castlegar. And she came to the trust dinner. So she was there and chatting away with Mayor Leonard. Anyway, it was great. Thank you.
A lot of good networking happened.
Yeah.
I also had a meeting at the BC Ferries mothership, some of their senior staff, which I'll update on at a later date when we hear more from them. Okay.
Did we put the?
You're only permitted one more question because it's your 25th anniversary.
Okay. Is the letter that we got disbanding the ferry advisory committees, the notice was that in the info items?
That was in November 25th.
Okay. I'm flying from you.
Okay, moving on to question period. So question period is an opportunity for members of the public to request clarification or ask follow-up questions related to an item discussed at the meeting. I will look to throngs in the gallery as well as online if there are any questions here. Seeing none, I will look for a motion to adjourn for cake. Moved by Councillor Getty, seconded by Councillor Wake. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. And that carries unanimously.